I'm going to start this demo by comparing what happens when I have these two different text files and I import them into DataGraph using kind of a simple drag and drop technique. First of all, this file here, Air Passengers, this is a CSV file that has 3 columns of data and is a pretty simple set of data. As a result, when I drag and drop this into DataGraph, it quickly converts that and imports both columns. I can highlight them and quickly plot that data, no problem. Now, the next file, if I want to go ahead and hit the spacebar to preview this one, this is an XML file that a user sent us where we have a lot of header information, and then the actual data itself has both the numeric data as well as strings surrounding that, which is typical for an XML type of a data that's in an XML file. If I take this file and drag it and drop that one on the DataGraph data table, it does not really do a good job at interpreting this data. It does actually go ahead and separate out these X and Y columns, but this is not in a format that we could plot at this point. What I'm going to do in this demo is I'm going to show you how you would use the import special method within DataGraph to create your own custom parser for a file like this, or really any text file, to make it easy to import these files. To begin, I'm going to go ahead and click on Data and Import Special. Now, what I'll see is the file manager, and I need to go ahead and click the file that I'd like to create this custom importer for. I'm going to go ahead and click Open. Now what you see is the Import Special interface, and you have some ability to change the size of these various components to this. Let me walk you through a little bit what the parts of this interface refer to. So first of all, in the top left-hand corner, we have a list of different importers that I've created. Over in the right-hand side, this is where we're going to set up the instructions for this particular file. Down here, you actually have a preview of the file itself. And this is really nice. I can kind of scroll through this, and it'll allow me to understand how well I'm importing the data, given the commands that I've set up. And then this down below here at the bottom is where you'll see what's actually going to be imported. I don't see anything there yet because I haven't set up any instructions yet. Let's focus now on this top part. So there's a number of things you can set up here. You can set up headers, you can have commands for when it should stop parsing, identify subheaders. For this file, it's actually pretty straightforward because for now we're just going to look at these lines of data, and we want the parser to move through the file and identify everywhere where we see this particular set of text, where we have a character and then point x equal to with the quotations. I can copy that directly from my file here, and then I want to identify that line within this section called record definition. To do this, I use this little magnifying glass, and when I click that, notice how a section has been added to my instructions. So this is really just the first instruction, and it's telling the parser to find a match for some text string in which I'm going to paste in this bit of text that identifies a line of data. I'm also telling it here to jump over that section of text, which is why, if you notice within this interface, everywhere where it says point x equal to is now gray, because it's going to ignore that part of the file. Now the next thing in my column is my actual numerical data that I'd like to import. To do that, I'm going to click on this little number icon, and that adds another instruction, which is telling it to go ahead and import a column that it expects to be numeric. I can give a name for this column, which this X data is mission time. I can also copy and paste that directly from this preview window. And what you see down here in the, let's see, in this bottom section, this is really nice because it's showing you now exactly what it's going to import based on these two instructions. And The reason that it's red is because I've identified this as numeric data, but there's a bunch of this other text that is included with my numeric data that is flagging this as your numeric column contains some non-numeric entries. And the reason why it's not correct yet is because I have to tell it when to stop looking for this particular column. I can do that by adding a command or a part of the command that says until you see the end quotation, that's the distance of this or where this column is located. And you'll see that in this preview of the file itself, it's highlighting the numbers that are being imported and then again showing us down below the actual file. If I imported it right now, what I would get. I want to import this one additional column, so I'm going to follow the same exact steps. I'm going to tell it to search for a particular text string and then add another numeric column. Again, it's highlighting that. I have a title that I can copy here. It's probability, and identify when this column ends, which is again quotation. And that is it. I now have set up my data to import. This is exactly what it would look like down here. If I go ahead and click on import, I want to do one more thing though. I'd like to save this parser. Let's go ahead and just call this my XML data for now. And notice that what this did is it added XML data. It saved it in what we call the local space. This is saving this parser specifically to this particular DataGraph file. If you would like to use this parser in other files, then you can make it a global importer. When you do that by saying copy into global list. But before I do that, I want to do one more thing. Notice this little section over here to the right-hand side. This is where you can type in a file extension that would be used by DataGraph to parse whatever data has this particular file extension. So if I type in here XML and hit enter, then again this section here, it's called file match. Any files that match this XML extension will be imported using this parser. Right now it's only doing it for this file, but if I also say copy into global list, then you can see XML data is listed there. This means that anytime I drag and drop in an XML data set, and actually I guess I also need to type this extension there. Anytime I drag and drop in an XML data set, it will import it using this set of commands. Now, again, maybe you don't want all XML data to be imported this way. You could leave it local and have it only for this particular file. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave these settings. And let's go ahead first and just click, whoops, in this bottom left-hand corner, click on Import. And sure enough, here is my data that was imported. And I can go ahead and highlight these two columns, click a plot command, and there's my data. There's my plot. Now for this particular data, we would want it to be logarithmic, and this looks nice. So the really cool thing here now is that since I've set this parser up, again, I can reuse it for other data sets. To illustrate, let me go ahead and just minimize this, start with a brand new file. And if I go ahead now and take this results data that before looked very incoherent when I dragged it and dropped it into DataGraph, and I drag and drop it now, sure enough, DataGraph is importing this file as mission time and probability. I can set up a plot with that. And really, once you have your graphics set up and your plot set up, you wouldn't need to redo those also. This just makes it really easy to bring data in that has these various formats. If you have any questions on this, or you have any particular parser that you'd like to set up, you can really get pretty complicated with these, setting up the headers and subheaders, pulling out various information for files. But hopefully this is a good example to get you started, and so you can have some ideas of what you can do with this import special command.